The sheep's liver looked normal to me. It always did. That was the problem. Everyone kept asking what the gods wanted. Nobody ever asked how we were supposed to know. I was 17 years old, an apprentice, a boy carrying knives, bowls, water, incense, and fear. And somehow, the fate of kings depended on organs I barely understood. My master was Aristander of Telmessus. You may know his name. Most men in the army did. Not because he fought. Not because he commanded. Not because he shouted louder than other men. Aristander did something more frightening. He answered questions no one else dared answer. Will the gods favor us? Should the king advance? Is this dream a warning? Is this omen good? Is this silence dangerous? Men asked. Kings listened. Armies waited. And Aristander answered. People imagine seers standing beneath stars, whispering with gods. Sometimes. Mostly, we worked with blood. Animals, smoke, fire, water, knives, ashes, entrails. Religion on campaign is not clean. It smells. It stains your hands. It follows you into sleep. I carried what my master needed. I cleaned what others did not want to touch. I watched. I listened. I learned the names of gods, the order of prayers, the proper cuts, the signs men said mattered. But learning is not the same as seeing. My master would look at a sacrificed animal and grow still. Not dramatic, not theatrical. Still. Then he would speak.
The signs are favorable.
Or,
The king should wait.
or,
The gods require another offering.
and men believed him. I would look at the same signs, the same liver, the same smoke, the same birds, and I saw a liver, smoke, birds. That was all. Alexander believed in signs. Do not let anyone tell you otherwise. He was brave. He was clever. He was fast. He was terrifying. But he listened when Aristander spoke. That is what frightened me most. Not the soldiers, not the generals, not the priests. The king. When Alexander asked what the gods wanted, everyone turned toward my master. Parmenion, the companions, the officers, the men who had crossed rivers and killed enemies and watched cities burn. All of them waited. Not for the gods, for Aristander. The sheep never answered. The old man did. Before Issus, the army was nervous. You could feel it in the fires, in the way men checked armor too often, in the way jokes ended quickly. Darius was coming. The great king himself. Not a satrap, not a riverbank army. The king of kings. Before the battle, sacrifices were made. Prayers were spoken. Smoke rose into the morning. I stood behind Aristander and watched his face. Always his face. Because I still could not see what he saw. If the gods were speaking, they were not speaking to me. Then Issus happened. The Persians broke. Darius fled. The Macedonians shouted until their voices failed. The camp filled with stories before the blood had dried. Men said Alexander was favored. Men said the gods had chosen him. Men said Aristander had known. Of course he had known. That is what everyone believed. Before Issus, they respected my master. After Issus, they feared him. Because when a king keeps winning, people stop asking whether the gods favor him. They start asking how much. That night I could not sleep. Not because of the dead, though there were many. Not because of Darius, though his escape troubled everyone. I could not sleep because of the future. One day, Aristander would die. All men do. Even men who understand the gods. And one day, another seer would stand beside a king. What if it was me? What if the fire burned, the animal fell, the generals gathered, the king turned, and everyone waited? What if they asked, "What do the gods want?" And I still saw nothing? That question followed me, through camp, through marches, through prayers, through every sacrifice. What if I never learned? What if the gods spoke to Aristander, but not to me? What if there was something inside him that I did not have? A gift, a sharpness, a door opened somewhere in the soul. What if mine stayed closed? Men talk about courage in battle. They forget other kinds of fear. The fear of being handed responsibility you are not worthy to carry. The fear of becoming the man everyone turns to and having nothing to say. A few days after Issus, we performed another sacrifice. The army was preparing to move south along the coast, toward cities that watched us carefully, toward Tyre, toward whatever came next. The officers gathered. Alexander was there, not far, watching, waiting. I stood behind my master as always, close enough to see his hands, close enough to hear his breathing. The animal was prepared. The prayers were spoken. The knife moved. The blood steamed in the morning air. Then came the signs. Aristander looked down and paused. Not long. Less than a heartbeat, perhaps less than that. But I saw it. A hesitation. A tiny break in the old man's certainty. Nobody else noticed. Not the king, not the officers, not the soldiers. Only me. And in that moment, the whole world opened beneath my feet. What if the gods were silent? What if this time there was no answer? What if the king asked, and the old man had nothing to give? Would Alexander wait? Would the army halt? Would men whisper? Would fear spread? Would thousands refuse to march because one old man looked too long at a liver? Or worse, would they march anyway, without knowing? The pause lasted only a moment, but inside that moment, I lived an entire life. I saw myself older, standing where Aristander stood, a king watching me, generals watching me, an army waiting for my mouth to open. And I saw nothing. Nothing. Then Aristander moved. His face changed. Or perhaps it didn't. Perhaps I only imagined the change because I needed to. He lifted his head, calm, certain, unshaken, and he gave the answer. The signs were favorable. The officers nodded. The soldiers relaxed. The king accepted it. The army moved. Just like that, the world continued, and I was more confused than before. From that day on, I could not look at him the same way. Before, I had believed my master saw what others could not. Afterward, I still believed it, but not completely. There were two possibilities now. Either the gods truly spoke to Aristander, in ways I could not understand, or he carried uncertainty better than anyone alive. I did not know which frightened me more. People think armies are brave because they carry weapons. That is only partly true. Armies are brave because they believe someone knows where they are going. A king, a general, a god, a seer. Take that away, and even the strongest army becomes a crowd of men far from home. I began to understand something then. Aristander's work was not only reading signs. It was holding fear in his hands, and not letting the rest of us see it shake. Soon we marched south, toward Phoenicia, toward the coast, toward a city surrounded by water and pride. Men talked about Tyre, its walls, its ships, its island, its stubbornness. I walked behind the carts with the ritual tools, the knives, the bowls, the incense, the things men believe help them understand the gods. And I kept looking at Aristander, waiting, watching, searching for another pause, another hesitation, another crack. I never saw one. That made it worse. Years later, people would say Aristander guided Alexander across the world. Perhaps. Others would say Alexander made Aristander famous. Perhaps. I only know what I saw. After every sacrifice, after every dream, after every strange bird, strange flame, strange silence, men looked to my master, and every time, he gave an answer. For one heartbeat after Isis, one tiny heartbeat, I thought I saw doubt. Then it vanished. And perhaps that was the true gift. Not hearing the gods, not seeing the future, but never allowing thousands of frightened men to see your uncertainty. Because every time Alexander asked what the gods wanted, every eye turned toward Aristander, and every time he answered.